What is up, you guys? So on today's episode, I am going to run down what I think are the 5 best beginner motorcycles that you can buy right now if you're deciding you want to get into motorcycling, you want to get into the sport. If it's striking your interest, these are the 5 bikes I think are going to be best. And surprisingly, all 5 of the bikes that I'm going to list today are not the Kawasaki Versys. I know, surprise, surprise. Clearly it's the best bike times 5, but I'm going to give you 5 other options. All right, let's get into it. So you see your friends riding around on motorcycles, your boyfriend, girlfriend, like people on movies, people on TV, maybe you're watching some MotoGP. You see people riding motorcycles and you decide you want to get into motorcycles. But like I said, there's so many styles of motorcycle. How do you know what's right for you? And honestly, I can't tell you which bike is right for you. All I can tell you is what I think is personally the best of each style of motorcycle. So I'm going to run down the list of what I think are the 5 most popular styles of motorcycle, and then I'm going to give my suggestions for each one. And let's just go ahead and get into it with the first style of motorcycle, which I think is my favorite, which you probably know is my favorite, but ADV bikes. When I think of ADV motorcycles, I think of the Swiss Army knife of motorcycles. I think of the jack of all trades, the bike that can do it all. You can jump over a speed bump if you want. You can go off-roading if you want. You can ride down the highway if you want. You can commute to work on it. You can do everything on this motorcycle because that's what it's for. It's for doing everything. And your ADV bikes might not be the best at doing every single thing, but unlike most other styles of motorcycle, they can do everything. And when I think of ADV motorcycles, one bike comes to mind quickly, especially when you're thinking of beginner bikes. And I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. You probably called it, but what I'm thinking is the Kawasaki Versys, but not the Kawasaki Versys 650. I am thinking the Kawasaki Versys 300. What they did when they released that bike was take all the things that made the Kawasaki Versys 650 and 1000 good and change all the things that made it bad as an ADV bike. So they made the bike a little taller. They gave it softer, more like higher travel suspension. They gave it a more dirt-ready look. They gave it a little bit of skid or a little bit of ground protection out of the box. You don't have to buy all your aftermarket stuff. It comes from the factory, kind of ready to go off-road, and with some proper dual sporty tires on it, so you can go off-road, on-road with the tires that come with it versus the 650 and 1000 coming with strictly street tires. So they kind of correct all the little issues that it had as an ADV bike, and they put a small, reliable, tried and true engine in it. So honestly, if you're a beginner trying to get into ADV riding, I think it's a great option. So again, my bike for best beginner ADV machine is the Kawasaki Versys 300. But what if you what if you aren't into ADV riding? What if you are about sport biking? What if you're about getting your knee down or going and carving some canyons or looking like a racer? You want the fastest, the coolest, the sharpest motorcycle? Then you're probably looking at sport bikes. If that's what you're into, there's lots of them out there. The beginning sport or the beginner sport bike class is huge nowadays. There's so many options, and there's so many that have been around for a really long time, like the CBRs, the Ninjas, those ones that are just like tried and true, have been around for a long time. But as far as I'm concerned, the best one for the money right now is kind of a newcomer to the game, and I think that's why it's so interesting, because it is still original, but it's been around long enough to where we know it's reliable enough, we know it's fast enough, we know it's tried and true on a certain level, and that bike is the KTM RC390. I think that bike is amazing. There's so many good things about that motorcycle. And the very first one, the thing that just jumps out to me is the looks. That bike looks so good. Like a lot of beginning sport bikes look like beginner sport bikes. You look at a CBR 300, it looks like a beginner bike. It looks like the CBR's little brother, but the RC390 just looks like a motorcycle. Like, if you don't know anything about motorcycles, you would not know that it's the smaller brother of a bigger motorcycle. And the tech that they put in it, it's just leaps and bounds above like most beginner bikes. It really is. It's just the fit, finish, the tech, everything about that bike just screams premium. And yes, it costs a little bit more than the competition, but you're still talking beginner bike prices, so it's still fairly cheap as far as buying a brand new motor vehicle goes. So it's for sure my selection. One other thing that it really has going for it is that little bump in displacement. I think that'll allow you to not get tired of it very quickly. The way KTM tunes things is they make them screamers. They're ready to race slogan, they mean it. That bike is quick for what it is, and you'll have a good time with it for a really long time. So again, my choice for the best beginner sport bike has to be the KTM RC390. When some of you think of motorcycles though, the first thing that comes to mind is Harley Davidson. You're thinking knees in the breeze, you got your vest on, you're looking tough, you're just riding down the boulevard, showing off with your boys, you know, picking up some girls or some guys or both if that's what you're into. If you swing both ways, more power to you, get it in where you fit in. But Harley Davidson has become synonymous with one style of motorcycle, and that is cruiser motorcycles. You may also argue that Harley Davidson has become synonymous with motorcycles in general. They played a major role in getting motorcycles to the public. Granted, their sales are kind of tanking right now, but I think what Harley Davidson did for motorcycling and what they did for cruiser motorcycling in particular cannot be ignored. They are an exceptional brand with an exceptional lineage, an exceptional history. They really deserve your attention if you're into cruiser motorcycles, and this is coming from a guy who doesn't even like Harley Davidsons. But when you're talking beginner bikes, there's always one bike that always jumps out of the Harley Davidson lineup, and that is the Harley Davidson Sportster 883. But much like I did with the KTM RC390, I'm not going to go with the cliche, the obvious choice. I'm going to pick a bike that kind of gets shitted on by like Harley Davidson purists. A lot of people just don't like this motorcycle for whatever reason. Maybe it's not Harley Davidson enough, and maybe that's why I like it, because it isn't as Harley Davidson as the other ones. But that bike is going to be the Harley Davidson Street 750. It's a 750cc V-twin, lots of power as far as beginners go, but because it's a 750 and it's down-tuned like a Harley would be, it's not like an immense amount of power that's going to get you into any kind of trouble. It's still pretty mellow. I feel like you'd be more hard-pressed to get in trouble with that bike than you would with the RC390 that has half the displacement, honestly. This bike will be forgiving. It'll also have styles for miles. If you prefer the more modern accoutrement, it is one of the few Harley Davidsons that has liquid cooling, which it's a perk for a lot of people. I personally, like I said, don't like it, but it is a perk for a lot of people. So if you want that, you got it right there. But you also get that Harley Davidson badge that is so coveted by people. And it's kind of a unique package. They're a little different. You still get your Harley, but you're not riding the same exact Harley as everybody else. It's just a cool little bike, honestly. And if I were to have to buy a Harley Davidson, it's probably the one that I would pick, honestly, just because it is a little different. It is a little special, you know? It's not that same old Harley that everybody has. And for that, I think it's worth your attention. So again, my choice for the best beginner cruiser motorcycle is the Harley Davidson Street 750. What if ADV riding just really isn't enough off-roading for you though? What if you really want to go properly off-roading? You want to go fast off-road, you want to hit some jumps and whatnot without having some extra weight on your bike. As I've said many a times, I'm not a dirt bike guy. It's just not my thing. So I'm not gonna even pretend I know a lot about them or even slightly care about them by suggesting one to you. I'm gonna be honest with the audience and go ahead and suggest a dual sport, because dual sports are something I like. If you don't know the difference, a dirt bike is a bike that just goes off-road. It's just, that's all it does. There's no lights on a lot of them. They just go down dirt trails. But a dual sport is a bike that's built for riding on the street, but also fully ready to go off-road in even like the most gnarly of situations. And as far as beginner, I know that girl. As far as beginner dual sports go, I think my choice for a beginner bike would have to be the Honda CRF 250L. It's just an amazing motorcycle. I have a good friend that has one. I've ridden one a lot of times. They're just reliable, they're simple, they're great off-road. They also look good. You get that Honda reliability, you get that Honda name, which honestly, Honda means something as far as like motorcycles, and especially off-road motorcycles go. They have a nice lineage of making really good sound products, and there's nothing that's going to beat that Honda reliability, that Honda simplicity. It's just a great overall motorcycle if you want to take it off-road. The beauty of it is it's been around so long that there's a large, huge aftermarket for it. They've had a couple different like trim levels and styles, but generally they're all pretty much the same, and there's aftermarket for all of them. You can get an exhaust, you can get different fairings, you can get light kits, you can get like hot cams to make them faster, top ends, all kinds of stuff to upgrade these bikes to your liking. You can even put luggage on them if you wanted to make it your ADV machine. You can load it up and go on a trip. It's not the fastest bike by any means, but it'll get you where you're going as long as you're patient, honestly. So again, my choice for best beginner dual sport motorcycle has to be the Honda CRF 250L. Get you one, you will not regret it. Those things are so much fun. Trust me on this one. You want this bike. When some of you think of motorcycles, what you're really thinking is just your classic standard motorcycles. You're thinking like early 60s and 70s Hondas, and you're thinking Royal Enfields and Triumphs and just those like iconic British shapes of motorcycles. And I don't blame you. Those things are beautiful. Those are really good looking motorcycles, and some of them are really good riding motorcycles. When it comes to beginner bikes though, I would not suggest buying an actual vintage bike. Actual vintage bikes come with a huge like load of BS that goes along with them. They're cool, they can be a lot of fun, they can be really stylish, but it is a machine, and machines deteriorate over time, and especially motorcycles, time wears on them. Honestly, they deteriorate quick. And when you're picking up one of those 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe even 80s and 90s motorcycles, they will have a lot of things that need addressing, and a lot of times for a beginner it just becomes too much. You don't want to worry about like rubber bits that have rotted away. You don't want to worry about dirty carburetors. You don't want to worry about like connectors that have like become brittle and failed. You want to go out and ride and learn how to handle your machine and have a good time. And I think the problem with those vintage bikes is when a lot of those issues will start to arise, it can kind of make a person shy away from the sport. You can get so annoyed because you went outside on a cold morning and your bike wouldn't start that you don't even want to ride anymore. You don't even care about motorcycling anymore. So you just give up on the whole sport before you're even like hooked. So if you really like that styling, I would absolutely suggest you just buy a modern motorcycle that has that styling. And there's a lot of them out there. But when it comes to beginner bikes, I think the best one, and I've talked about this bike a lot of times in videos. I think I just talked about it like a couple videos ago. But I think the best bike for a beginning standard motorcycle is the Suzuki TU250X. That bike is just great, honestly. Again, nice and simple and reliable. Enough power to get you where you're going, not so much power that you're going to get in a bunch of trouble. The look is just the best. Hands down, my favorite bike on this list. If I had to pick one of these bikes to be my only motorcycle, my beginning motorcycle, whatever, I'd pick the Suzuki TU250X. It's from a brand that has proven reliability. If you get that white one with the yellow, red, and like orange stripes, oh my god, it looks like it was just plucked out of the 70s. It's so beautiful. They even sound good for like a really small, like single cylinder bike. And I think the cool thing about it is, whether you're into cruisers, whether you're into sport bikes, no matter what you're into, anybody who sees a standard motorcycle going down the street, it's going to break their neck. People love the look of those bikes because they honestly just look great. They look timeless. And if you're into that, which I know a lot of people are now, especially kind of youth culture, they're into those vintage things. Like everybody's into that kind of older stuff, that older styling right now, the retro look. This bike has it for like in spades. Like you want this bike if that's what you're after. If you're all about that aesthetically pleasing vintage shit, this is the motorcycle for you. Check it out. You'll have a great time with it. So again, my choice for best beginner, classically styled, vintage, standard, whatever you want to call it, motorcycle is the Suzuki TU250X. So while I listed all the bikes in individual categories that I think are great, I think there's two bikes that deserve to get an honorable mention. Normally in my list kind of situations, I don't like throw in some honorable mentions, but these two I felt like I couldn't ignore. But I also didn't like them as my number one choice, so I couldn't be dishonest and say they were. But the two bikes that definitely need some attention are both from BMW. The BMW G310R and the BMW G310GS. My God, BMW, those names are really difficult to say. That's a lot of letters, a lot of numbers, all jumbled together. But I managed. Thank you. Kudos to me. I got through it. Those bikes are both exceptional. They both use the same power plant. So just like they're interchangeable based on which style you like most. The R is their like naked sport bike. It kind of looks like this bike, but like blue and smaller. It's a single cylinder, nice and reliable. I've seen that bike sail down the highway for miles and miles and miles reliably. I've seen it tear up some mountain roads. I've even seen it go off road, though I don't suggest it. And it's for sure a great commuter bike because you're going to be sipping gas. Amazing gas mileage, plenty of power to get out of the way. I think it's great if you're after like a nice, attractive, kind of sporty looking motorcycle. That is the one for you. But if you're more of an ADV daddy or mommy, let's be all inclusive here, and you want that ADV styling, you want that dirt bikey look, go ahead and get yourself the GS, because BMW GS has honestly become synonymous with ADV riding. They are the ADV line, honestly. Like I personally haven't like drank the Kool-Aid and bought one yet, but they're exceptional motorcycles. And the Baby G, which I'm gonna call it, the small G310, is no exception. That bike is awesome. It'll go off-road. It'll send it, honestly. If you're trying to go send it off-road, pick that bike up because you will have a good time with it. So those are my two honorable mentions, both from BMW, both great. The BMW G310R and the BMW G310 GS. My God, I did it again. I said them both successfully. Thank the Lord. He's up there. You guys, that's it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit a thumbs up. If you enjoy this channel in general, please go ahead and hit subscribe. I super appreciate it. And last but not least, please go out and have a fantastic day. You deserve it. Get a pizza, get some ice cream, stop worrying about your waistline. You look fantastic. Just enjoy your life because you only get one. Y'all have a good one. Peace.